So let's spend a second talking about the fact that I added a color adjustment layer above the stamp tool. And the reason that I did it wasn't because this is going to be the colors of the final image. This is way too saturated. It was to bring out the flaws. And this is a trick that I like to use all the time when adjusting an image. This isn't exactly a stamp tool tip. It's something that's important throughout Photoshop, whether you're color correcting, whether you're using stamp tools, whether you're doing anything. If you really want to get that perfect match, one way to do it is to exaggerate the colors in multiple directions. And if it's working both when colors are exaggerated as dark and when colors are exaggerated as light, it is absolutely going to work in that middle range. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so let's, just for the sake of example, I don't know, maybe we'll extend the height of this wood pile. I don't know if I'll be able to successfully pull that off, but it will work for this example. So I have a color adjustment layer right here, and I'm going to turn it off right here. You know what? For the sake of example, we're just going to do what we did right here. We're going to remove this tree. Yeah, that'll work great. So when removing this tree, this looks pretty good. Let's see if it looks pretty good when we make it really, really bright. All right, well, it looks terrible then. Looks great then. And let's see if it looks really good when we make it dark. Let's see if it looks good when we make it so the contrast is just as contrasty as possible. So here we go. I'm just going to increase the contrast. And by doing this right here, we're actually able to see a flaw that I couldn't see at the other color level. And let me see if I can make that even more clear. So you can see I'm just playing with the curves palette in order to get this right here. All right. I'm going to zoom in. Can you see that right here? What we're looking at is a little bit of smudginess. So I'm going to see if I can really highlight this. Da, 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 da. No, that's no good. Here we go. So you can see how it's kind of it's supposed to be a smooth fade, but instead we kind of have this issue of it's not quite a smooth fade right there. So I'm just going to use the healing brush. I'm going to fix this right here. We're getting into some really subtle territory. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right layer. I'm going to fix this. So that looks a little bit better to me. And you can see that's really, really, really subtle. And I could have never even seen that that existed as a problem, except if I put this color adjustment layer. By taking the color adjustment layer off, there's all sorts of problems that I didn't realize existed. So I'm going to put it back on because they were just blown out, just completely blown out. So now we're seeing, by using this color adjustment layer, all sorts of problems that I didn't know existed before because the color adjustment layer was blowing them out. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to use the healing brush, and I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to fix it. And if it works like this, then it will work. Now I want you to notice something. When I'm clicking this, notice that the area inside of the stamp tool or the healing brush region is a lighter color. Here's the reason for that. Stick with me. If I deselect or if I turn off the color adjustment layer, this is the color of this layer. If I turn this back on and then copy and paste, we're seeing the color of the before the color adjustment layer is applied. So we're not seeing it combined with the color adjustment layer. And the reason for that is we have the stamp tool, in this case the healing brush, only sampling current and below. The color adjustment layer is above, so it's not included in this color. If I were to do all layers, chaos occurs. Let me show you this. So if I do all layers, I sample this, and then now the color looks right? Like now it looks like, oh yeah, that's the color that I'm looking at. I'm sampling all layers. Great. But if I then fix it, craziness occurs. So here, let me do it with the stamp tool because the healing brush is fixing it there. And I'm going to set this on all layers again. Copy. Craziness occurs. So why is this happening? The reason this is happening is it's copying the color adjusted color, but then it's pasting it into this layer below, and then the color adjustment is happening to the already color adjusted. So what we're doing right there is we're copying not the this layer and this layer, we're copying all three of these layers, and we do not want to copy this color adjustment. That was a little bit confusing. All you need to know is always set this on current and below, because if you set it on all layers and there is a color adjustment layer above it, the color adjustment is basically being applied twice and you're going to destroy the image. So something to keep in mind, set it on color and current and below. Just dwell in it for a little bit. I know that that explanation was not my greatest explanation ever. The takeaway, always do it on current and below. Just always do it on current and below. And then you won't have any problems, because then the color adjustment won't be applied to itself. All right, so notice this right here. This is a great example of where the healing brush isn't working because it's copying and pasting this, and it's actually better to use the stamp tool, because the stamp tool isn't going to try and auto-adjust and get that right there. So here we go. So I'm covering a couple of tips right here. One of them, let's go back to the healing brush here. One of them is a great trick to get that much better of a color correction. And man, this is an advanced trick. Like, too advanced for people starting out, but you guys got it. Like, you're good. We're good. Is use a color adjustment layer to really increase the contrast and see all of the flaws, and put it as much darker, put it as much lighter. Make sure it works both ways, because if it works like that, it will absolutely work in the middle range. And the other trick is when you're on this layer, the stamp tool healing brush layer. I'm not big on naming my layers. I know I should. I'm the worst. When you're on this layer, make sure that it's set to current and below and not all layers. Otherwise, if you have a color adjustment layer above it, you'll cause some serious problems. All right, so those are some really advanced techniques for working with a color adjustment layer to really bring out those fixes. And also for why it's important to keep it on current and below. So if you stuck with me for this, great. Mazel tov, congratulations. And if this was super confusing, please drop a question and maybe I'll re-record the class and make it way more clear. But I think you got it.